Good evening and greetings to everyone. I'm Saloni Singh and I am currently pursuing a post-graduation degree in politics and international relations from the esteemed School of International Studies, Central University of Gujarat. Before starting this session, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Manish Kanwar sir and the entire GSTS faculty for giving me this opportunity to present my perspectives as a student on this very contemporary diplomatic issue. So, I would like to introduce the topic. So, the center of our today's talk will be China, like as mentioned by the moderators. So, before diving into anything, we have to make sure we have to keep this point in our mind that China, in any behind any of its political move or diplomatic motive, it has a crux of selfishness behind it. So for instance, अगर हम historical perspective से भी देखें उसकी जो Belt and Road Initiative है और which comes under the string of pearls theory, तो उसमें China has tried to, in the name of merely fostering cooperation, China has tried to create a dominance over the region of South China Sea and the Indo-Pacific region. So both the South China Sea and the Indo-Pacific regions are basically connected, and this it goes without say that it has major implication for the major countries like India and the United States of America. I would like to introduce you to the objectives of the today's talk. Objectives. The next slide. So the objective of the talk will be to understand the contemporary moves of China in terms of new political initiatives. So decade back, China has introduced enormous policies like I discussed before the BRI initiative, but now things have taken a great change. It is now more in terms of contemporary advancements like technology and recently AI being a major booster. Then China's emergence as a trading power, China is often regarded as the trade titan. Then China's growing centers of influence now, it's not only limited to the Asia, it's now even in Middle East, in the Horn of Africa, and in the Northeast Asian region as well. Then again, when we talk about the Chinese dominance, Indian factor is is something which definitely fuels this talk. So चाइना हैज हिस्टोरिकली बहुत सारे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स हुए हैं हमारे चाइना के साथ एंड मेन जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रहता है वो बॉर्डर इशू है रिसेंटली वी हैव गलवान वैली डिस्प्यूट एंड द डोकलाम इशू and followed by that we will again see जहाँ इंडिया की अपनी इम्पोर्टेंस है चाइना के लिए यूएस ऑल्सो इज अ मेजर ट्रिगरिंग पॉइंट उसकी जो डोमिनेंस है चाइना की उसको काउंटर बैलेंस करने के लिए so we will see how China and recently in the era of Trump presidency for a second term we will understand कि China उसको कैसे perceive करता है और उसके actions क्या base होते हैं उस पे. Then again at the end of the presentation we will understand the future perspectives regarding China according to various political theories. Now, the very first initiative which I would like to introduce that China has put out to the world in a couple of years back is the Global Security Initiative. So, Global Security Initiative is a brainchild of President Xi Jinping, who in the Boao Forum of Asian Conference, he introduced the Global Security Initiative, and followed by it, we have Global Initiative on Data Security and Global Development Initiative, which are basically a follow-ups of Global Security Initiative. Now, here Jinping advocates about six major commitments. Now, I would like to mention a very critical thing that this is all done uh, in the name of this is all done by the China to create a hegemony, but in the name of it, it has promoted various points like respect for the UN Charter, the three C's, which are common, comprehensive, and cooperative and sustainable security. Then establishment of peace and peaceful settlement of disputes. Uh, and again, it says fostering cooperation. So this is basically a whole idea by China, and as to how linked these countries, and it is basically partnering with the countries which are less inclined towards the West, as you can see on the map on the upper right corner. Then it has also major implications for India being a very adjacent neighbor. So for India, we can say that like many other initiatives by China, it is a clear indicator that such an that GSI can definitely prove to be a boost for China to become or overtake the US economy by the year 2049. Through GSI, China is even trying to justify some of its illegal actions. Like it is, for instance, it is unilaterally taking these stakes at various regions of the South China Sea, and it is basically justifying those illegal actions, those improper actions through in the name of this global security initiative. In context of the GSI, the regions which are primarily in the focus are the regions of Africa, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia. Now, we all have seen how technology has taken over in almost every aspect of the world. टेक्नोलॉजी की जब हम बात करते हैं तो आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस अभी बहुत बहुत ज्यादा बातों में आ रहा है एंड इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस में कंट्रीज हैव world powers have this tendency to utilize the technological developments for their own to extend their areas of influence in China. And how can we not think that China is not going to utilize this, right? So deep seek, now, let us understand what DeepSeek is. It is a Chinese experiment with the artificial intelligence. So, China has used the availability of the AI to an extent that it has came as a major shock to the world, and the primarily it is primarily focused on developing the maritime research and underwater exploration with the fact of advanced technological development, particularly in the South China Sea region. China has come up with various innovations under this deep sea thing. And first is the Jialong submarine. It is a manned submersible which has the capacity to go in depth of at least 7,000 meters, and it is basically it has this motive to study the ocean floor and to create opportunities like to conduct scientific researches about the same, better understanding of underwater species, ecosystem, and geological structures. Then enhancing the RUVs and AUVs. This is something which comes, which AUVs and ROVs, it is something which comes under a main perspective of the deep sea analysis. Security, as far as the security is concerned, so deep sea can prove to be a major boost to enhance the national security of China, because due to its strategic interest, China is certainly looking at opportunities like AI to scan possible dangers like the US influence. Again, this influence of China and this deep sea recently has came as a major shock for the US. So let's see how it goes on, and it's still there is a conclusion that has to be drawn on regarding the same. Now, China is also known as the trade titan. Now, when I say trade titan, we can see that जब हम 1970s से देखते हैं, which was amidst the Cold War. तो उस टाइम पे यूएस वाज द ओनली सोल पावर. कम्युनिस्ट रिजीम्स को इतना दो देयर वाज एन आइडियोलॉजिकल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, बट जो कम्युनिस्ट जो आइडियोलॉजी है उसको इतनी लेवरेज नहीं दी जाती थी. लिबरलिज्म वाज कंसिडर्ड एज द सोल प्रॉपर सुपर पावर वाली आइडियोलॉजी उसको बोला जाता था. बट ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम जब चाइना ने अपने इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स चाइना अंडरगो नहीं किया था, so China's stand at the world share was even less than 1%. And I mean how shocking it is when when you say like that. But after 1970, because after World War II, China has been a part of GATT, which is General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs. So but unfortunately got dissolved and China has to back out. But after the 1970s, in the post-Cold War era, there were two major developments जहाँ हम बोल सकते हैं कि चाइना को as a major trade titan क्यों कहा गया. First was China's accession to the WTOs in the early to in 1995 and the emergence of global value chains. So WTO is a World Trade Organization, which we all know, and China is one of the major members of it. Now, global value chains allowed low-cost partners, which China used to be at that time, to scale up their operation and open up their markets to the world. So through that, China had an opportunity to portray itself as a rising manufacturing power in the world, क्योंकि आज का कोई भी product आप देख लीजिए, it has at the back of it is like made in China. So this was something which was absent back then, and now we can say how कितना tremendous change आ गया है Chinese economy में. Now चाइना का जो rise है trade में as a economy, it is both debatable and admirable because of various reasons. क्योंकि the rise of China as a global titan, कुछ countries को पसंद नहीं है, US and EU region in particular, because China has various issues always regarding subsidies, export measures, intellectual property rights, and the management of exchange rates. Now, due to this, we have China has trade tussles with the USA because Trump, even in his prior presidency, Trump imposed trade war on China, and EU, in fact, EU issued its first sanction against China in the year 1984, which basically reflects the souring relations between China and the European Union. So basically, there is a less influence of China in EU trading areas. But at the same time, we can say that the idea is also amazing जब हम चाइना की बात करते हैं ट्रेड में, because जब कोविड चल रहा था तो वर्ल्ड मार्केट्स को बहुत ज्यादा बैकलैश फेस करना पड़ा था because there were disruptions faced by the Chinese suppliers, but China stood resilient to those changes. And in 2021, China's, that is post-COVID era, China's trade economy recovered from the crisis, and it has been really impressive. In the first quarter of the 2024, the Chinese exports surged by about 50% year over year to about US dollar 710 billion. इन 2024 जब हम एक्सपोर्ट्स और इंपोर्ट्स की बात करते हैं तो जहां तक डेटा कंसर्न है अप्रोक्सीमेटली $3.58 ट्रिलियन चाइना के exports होते थे, and as far as the imports are concerned, it was about somewhere $2.59 trillion. ये तो हो गई चाइना की ट्रेड टाइटन. जैसे आप मैप में भी देख सकते हैं चाइना का बाय द ईयर 2020 और मिड्स ऑफ दैट कितना ज्यादा हाई लेवल है, और नीचे उसके ट्रेडिंग पार्टनर्स भी हैं वेयर यू कैन से कि इसकी जो डीकपलिंग हुई है इकोनॉमी की चाइना की, वो यूएस और ईयू के साथ बहुत ज्यादा हुई है. नाउ I would like to move on further in the presentation. And a major issue जब हम चाइना की बात करते हैं is basically India. So China and India basically they are affected by what they do and how they perform on the international forums. So China and India. So China-India tussle. The major concern is the border war. So the root cause of Sino-Indian conflict is an ill-defined 3,440 kilometers long border dispute, which is line of actual control, and it is a disputed boundary. And there are various rivers, lakes, snow caves along that border जहाँ पे बहुत सारी military confrontations होने के chances हैं और triggers रहते हैं. And both the nations are, जैसे अभी हम आगे बात करेंगे, तो दोनों nations बहुत अपनी तरह से कोशिश करते हैं to promote infrastructural development in that LAC line of actual control, which is disputed. And certainly ये एक बहुत बड़ा triggering point है दोनों के border dispute में. गलवान वैली डिस्प्यूट जो हुआ था 2020 में, इसके लिए इंडिया वांटेड टू construct a road to the Galwan Valley. Again, China never wanted it. Then Doklam issue in 2017. So Doklam is basically in amidst of the triangle of India, China, and Bhutan. While Bhutan, बोलता है कि डोकलाम हमारी टेरिटरी है, it is a part of their region of the Himalayan kingdom, but China has issues with that क्योंकि China says कि it is not a part of Bhutan, it is a Chinese territory. Then again India is shaking hands with Bhutan regarding the same, and hence the conflict is in front of us. Then, apart from border issue, there is an India-China-Pakistan border. So this whole picture can be understood by a formative triangle, जहाँ India, China, and Pakistan, or they form a triangle and they are linked by a long strategic chain to the United States because there is a linkage with the US now. So in geography, so the geographical proximity of these three regions, of all the three, like China, India, and Pakistan, they are all nuclear armed states, and where any military standoff or confrontation is perceived as having a risk, perceived as having a risk of the use of nuclear weapon or maybe a conduction of another nuclear arms race in the region. And for India, it is very unfortunate because हमारे लिए ये problem हो सकती है because we can face it a two-front war, one with Pakistan and one with China, making Asia a battlefield for us. Both in international relations, I feel that both intentions and capabilities play a major role in forming perceptions and misperception about your enemy or allies, and this is a major factor which happens in this China India factor as well. So Pakistan is certainly more inclined towards China because China is supplying it with necessary infrastructural uh, development thing, and for nuclear capabilities as well, it is also relied on China. So growing uh, proximity between Pakistan and China is certainly indirectly and obviously in the coming next to 4 to 5 years, we can see that New Delhi is certainly shaking hands and moving closer to Washington. We can say that there is a challenge to the in to Sino-Pakistan friendship here. Now, China is not China. Apart from this triangle, there is another factor. So China has been one of the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council ever since its formation in 1945. So, जब इंडिया पे जंप करने से पहले there is a very जब हम बात करते हैं यूएनएससी की, there is always a fault in its structural formation क्योंकि तब वर्ल्ड वॉर टू का सिनेरियो वाज डिफरेंट. वहां सिर्फ ट्रेडिशनल सिक्योरिटी एस्पेक्ट को देख के वो पूरा सिस्टम बनाया गया था, और अब वी हैव नॉन ट्रेडिशनल एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ सिक्योरिटी एज वेल, जो कि इशू जो कि कंसर्न करना चाहिए, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली वी आर नॉट. Today we have 189 countries and only 5 of them are represented as permanent members. So is it fair? It is not fair. And China being like मैंने introductory part में जैसे discuss किया था, China का हर motive एक selfish cause के साथ जुड़ा होता है. And given this fact, it is being represented as a P5 member. It is truly unfair, and I always believe that China wants to share wants to promote a multipolar world, but never a multipolar Asia due to the Indian factor. And China is certainly not going to share its position with India, and given it has veto power, so any decision which goes in favor of giving India a stake over the permanencies, China is definitely going to dissolve that with its veto power. Now, I would like to talk about China's growing influence as a dominant regional player. So it has not only limited itself to the Asian region, of course, because we first discuss its game in the African region as well. So China has become uh, Sub-Saharan Africa's largest trading partners and creditor over the years under programs such as Belt and Road Initiative. China is also playing a huge role in the development and integration of Africa. So East African community which is EAC. So with EAC, China has contributed infrastructural development of the region, construction of transports, information and communication technology. Now the Belt and Road Initiative has also played a facilitating role in the cooperating efforts by the EAC partner states over regional infrastructural developments in Chinese financing of construction of mega infrastructural projects in the region. apart from apart from this African region, हमने मैंने बहुत बार पहले बात की साउथ चाइना सी की. So what is this issue? So South China Sea is considered to be one of the busiest waterways in the world, and it is a significant route for which is used for trading and other purposes and merchant shipping. So the parties in this dispute are Brunei Darussalam, China, Taiwan, Philippines, and they are geopolitically located in the Indo-Pacific region. China has, you know, uh, while the world was dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, China very cleverly, unilaterally changed the things on its own ground with regard to the SCS, South China Sea. In in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic, it increased its influence in the sea. It increased its naval bases on that particular region. Lately, as per the records are concerned, Beijing has issued names of approximately 23 islands, reefs, and 55 undersea entities in the South China Sea, in a bid to reaffirm its sovereignty in the region. And न्यूज में भी आया था कि चाइना has illegally demarcated and another map regarding the South China Sea, which was extremely unfair on its part. Let's talk about America as one of the core component in this whole issue of South China Sea. Now, obviously, it is nothing to discuss much here. China has, while China is exercising its dominance, USA will, like we will discuss further, USA is also reluctant to all these developments China is initiating. Apart from South China Sea, China is also a member to various regional organizations like BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, though it is not a member of ASEAN country, but it has one-way partnership with all the 10 ASEAN states, so which condemns India's or US influence in the Northeast Asian region, and it gives China state an improper, or maybe you can say illegal, stake over the same. Apart from this, we have Chinese influence in the Middle East as also. So trade partnership with Middle East countries has also increased in terms of China with like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. So China is also a member, which is very dangerous and critical. China is also in the member of Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which is JCPOA. It is also known as the Nuclear Group, and Iran is also a member of it. So I think you all can guess how tremendously dangerous it can prove to rest of the world. Followed by this slide, let's now understand how USA, China is counterbalancing the US dominance in the world, and how it is posing a challenge to the same. So China's a soft power diplomacy, when we say that through its soft power diplomacy, it is transshipping the Chinese dream to the world, and through BRI, maritime Silk Road connectivity network of railways, roads, railway roads, pipelines, ports, communication infrastructure, etc. Now साउथ चाइना सी का जब डेवलपमेंट की हम बात करते हैं, तो उसमें चाइना ने अपने बहुत सारे नेवल पोर्ट्स, नेवल डेवलपमेंट्स, अप्रोक्सीमेटली 50 वहाँ पे उन्होंने इशू करवाए हुए हैं चाइना ने. देन देयर इज अगेन एंड ट्रेमेंडस एरोस्पेस कैपेबिलिटीज, जैसे चाइना डेवलप कर रहा है बहुत सारी like space exploration through CNSA, which is Chinese National Space Administration, manned space flights, ASAT, which is anti-satellite system, and Surveillance satellites, which are basically China's plan of action to lunar missions and mission to Mars, etc. Now, let us understand how US is going to reciprocate to Chinese dominance. So many people perceive that China चाइना और यूएस का जो अभी कंटेम्प्रेरी इशू चल रहा है इट इज मोर लाइक अ कोल्ड वॉर बट नो इट इज नेवर अ कोल्ड वॉर because you know during cold war it was a proper ideological conflict but now it's not about ideology, it's about a proper race ki if liberalism can if USA being a liberal country can set such standards, then we can keep the ideologies aside, then we can also take a mark to another level, and we can have a huge one to one, shoulder to shoulder competition with the USA. Taiwan, यूएस जब बात करता है चाइना को रेसिप्रोकेट करने की, सो ताइवान एक आइलैंड है जो कि बहुत कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में है. इट इज इन अंडर द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ द यूएसए, और China never wants that. China wants to take that region into its sphere of influence, but then again, USA mentions about the dual deterrence policy, where if anyhow China decides to aggressively attack the region, then certainly it has to bear the repercussions. Now, Quad dialogue, which is a very extremely important development. So, Quad is a quadrilateral security dialogue between the diamond, and they are Japan, Australia, India, and USA. So, under Quad, there are various activities like joint military exercises like Malabar, Aussie Index by Australia and India, and 5G and technological developments, which all these four countries are trying to develop for high quality transportation of network to the region. Then, apart from this economic decoupling, as far like I mentioned above, USA has USA has decided to decouple its economy with China. So China's share in the US imports started to decline from 21.6% to 16.5% in the years between 2017 to 2022. Apart from this, USA is also trying to strengthen its allies and partnership in Asia through its friendship with through its friendship with India, basically, because in the Trump presidency, Trump has always considered uh, Modi as his friend, and definitely there will be a huge, we will be able to witness the growing influence of India-US friendship, and certainly when India is a rising power in Asia, certainly a good friendship with India is going to boost the same. Now let us understand the concluding slide as to how we can perceive China in the next 10 years. So Beijing's assumption of Trump's presidency will be like uh, there can be a disturbance because initially Trump imposed uh, trade war on China, and it is likely to do so under the Trump 2.0 presidency as well, because there is no certainty regarding it, because uh, Trump has always had a bad impression regarding the China. Then China is continuing will continue to export its technology capital to various regions of the world, like Middle East, like we talk about the region, its regional dominance in the region, and to extend its influence through its initiatives and various political developments. Then economic growth is likely to grow. However, it is still, we cannot say that it is only going to boost, because there will be some chances where we can say जहाँ पे Chinese economy थोड़ी stagger कर सकती है. Tremendous geopolitical influence through its initiatives in uh, in various regions like Middle East, then Asia, through BRI string of pearls, and now again various technological developments, especially the deep sea. And there will be space exploration capabilities. China का अपना खुद का एक space center है, and it is obviously promoting its lunar missions and Mars missions, and it is working towards the same. Lastly, again there is a huge, in like we discussed the point, there is a huge regional influence in Asia as well, because China never wants to China never wants to have a multipolar Asia. It is in favor of representing a multipolar world, but not, never a multipolar Asia due to the Indian factor. So it is obviously looking at the opportunities to extend its influence in the region by, by compressing the Indian dominance on the same. That's it.
थैंक यू सो मच सलोनी, इट वाज अ ग्रेट प्रेजेंटेशन। मतलब पूरे टॉपिक को, चाहे वो चाइना की इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ हो, टेक्नोलॉजी हो, ट्रेड हो, ग्लोबल गवर्नेंस हो, रीजनल इन्फ्लुएंस हो, या फिर ग्लोबल जो लीडरशिप को लेकर, वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर को लेकर सारी बातें आपने बहुत ही खूबसूरती से एक्सप्लेन की। तब अब आइए हम आगे बढ़ते हुए अभी हमारा जो क्वेश्चन आंसर राउंड है वो कंडक्ट करते हैं। हमारे जो ऑडियंस है वो आपसे कुछ क्वेश्चन करेंगे इस टॉपिक के रिगार्डिंग, तो आप कोशिश कीजिए उनको आंसर करने की। सो इस बार हमने सोचा है कि डायरेक्ट चैट बॉक्स से क्वेश्चन पिक करने से अच्छा है कि हम डायरेक्ट जो हमारे ऑडियंस है उनसे इंटरेक्ट करें और वो खुद अपने जो क्वेश्चंस है वो हमारी स्पीकर से पूछे। सो मैं एक एक करके जो उन्होंने क्वेश्चन रखे हैं उनको इनवाइट करना चाहूंगा। सबसे पहले तो सौरभ सिंह, मैं उनको इनवाइट करता हूं कि वो आए और अपना जो क्वेश्चन है वो हमारे स्पीकर से पूछे।
थैंक यू मंथन। सलोनी, वाकई में काफ़ी अच्छा टॉक था आपका। जो मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि रिसेंट टाइम्स में हम देख रहे हैं कि जो चाइना है वो, जैसे जो ब्रिक्स या फिर एससीओ जैसे इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, उनके जो ओरिजिनल मैंडेट है उससे डाइवर्ट होके वो इन इंस्टीट्यूशंस को एंटी वेस्ट एजेंडा प्रमोट करने के लिए यूज़ कर रहा है। तो डेफिनेटली जो ओरिजिनल मैंडेट हैं ऐसे इंस्टीट्यूशंस के, वो कहीं न कहीं हैम्पर हो रहे हैं। तो आपको क्या लगता है कि इंडिया ऐसे सिचुएशंस को मतलब कैसे कैटर कर सकता है, ताकि जो ओरिजिनल जो उनके मैंडेट हैं वो बरकरार रहें?
Yes, thank you, Saurabh, for the question. It is an interesting one because मैंने अपनी presentation में भी बताया from the beginning कि चाइना का हमेशा से एक selfish motive रहा है उसके interest को facilitate करने में। Now be it as a permanent member of the UNSC or BRICS का, मैंने बताया regional organization में it is a core member of BRICS and SCO, so certainly वो उनके decisions को hamper करेगा, and it is doing so because it knows कि India has an alliance with the West, it has friendship with the countries like USA, so certainly it is going to hamper that. तो जब हम इंडिया की बात करें कि how India can, India can counter all these things against China. So इसके लिए सबसे important चीज ये है कि इंडिया को एक proper representation मिले as a developing country in the UN and in the other organizations of the world, क्योंकि अभी तक जो डेवलपमेंट का, हम लेट्स बी ऑनेस्ट, जो हमारा डेवलपमेंट का जो पेस है वो अभी कहीं ना कहीं बहुत ज्यादा निचला है, वो अभी टाइम लगेगा, बिकॉज बाय 20 वी आई एम नॉट सेइंग दैट वी आर नॉट एबल टू ग्रो as at par like China, but certainly we are going to grow, but it is not as compared to that of China. So China knows this thing and it use this factor as a trigger to influence decisions. But India के पास plus point ये है कि इंडिया हैज ऑलवेज स्टूड, चाहे वो G20 का समिट हम देख लें या उसके स्टैंड्स एट वेरियस इंटरनेशनल फोरम्स हम देख लें, इंडिया हैज ऑलवेज ट्राइड टू promote cooperativeness and stand up for the main causes of concern regarding the global commons. So सबसे मेन पॉइंट मेरे को लगता है इसका एक तरीका मैं बता सकती हूँ कि इंडिया को अगर प्रॉपर रिप्रेजेंटेशन मिल जाए एज अ डेमोक्रेसी, बिकॉज वी आर अ डेमोक्रेसी, वी हैव डाइवर्स काइंड ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ कम्युनिटीज, सो one aspect of it can be that.
Okay, Saloni, well answered. There is one more question from Preeti Rai. I invite Miss Preeti to come and ask her question to our speaker.
Am I audible, Manthan?
Yes, yes.
ओके थैंक यू मंथन एंड सलोनी आपने काफी अच्छा बोला आज माय क्वेश्चन इज कि व्हाट यू थिंक अबाउट द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ चाइना's debt trap diplomacy on developing nations. Should I repeat?
Yes, please, you can repeat.
Okay. My question is, what's your views on the impact of China's debt trap diplomacy on developing nations? मतलब जो चाइना अपना एक डेप्ट देता है डेवलपिंग जो नेशंस होते हैं उनको, तो उस पे आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे? वो अपने व्यूज बताइए। एक टाइप से वो कर्ज देता है अदर कंट्रीज को।
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
So, basically, though I must admit I have to read more about that, but I think that ये चाइना उन कंट्रीज को ज्यादा ऐसे डेब्ट ट्रैप्स में लाता है which are more aligned with the US, so with the West, not particularly the US, and which are more which are not aligned with the West. And China certainly knows this thing ki, if it puts these countries under this thing of debt trap, then definitely it will be able to create a whole hegemon at the back of it with all these countries. So I think it is somewhere unfair, but it is also necessary for China to create its dominance. However, it is really unfair, and my stake on this issue is that all these countries need to have, before any action must be taken, these countries need to have their independent stand. They are the major fault factor is only that they are not developed, and they have major issues, and they see China as a major uh, booster to supply to them in terms of infrastructure and this maybe nuclear development and infrastructure and economy developments, etc.
Thank you, Saloni.
Okay, Saloni. There is one more question. Actually, I think Chavi Chaudhary is there. She is raising her hand, so I invite her to ask her question.
Hi, Saloni. This was really a informative presentation. I really liked the way you presented your thoughts. So basically, my question arises from one of my paper which I am working right now, and I'm gonna present at JNU. So it deals with the approach of India and China towards the African nations. So I want to ask you, what is your perspective, or what do you think whether India and China's engagement in African nations fundamentally competitive, or do you think that their economic, political, and their diplomatic approaches can create some kind of opportunities for complementarity in shaping like Africa's global role? So I want to know more about that.
Yeah, so like we know that China has an increasing dominance over the sub-Saharan Africa and Gulf of Africa. So यहाँ पे मेरे को ऐसा लगता है कि चाइना और इंडिया के कंपटीशन की वहाँ उस रीजन में इन्फ्लुएंस करने की कोई बात आती ही नहीं है, बिकॉज फंडामेंटली हमारे मोटिव्स एकदम अलग है. जैसे पिछले क्वेश्चन में मैंने बताया, चाइना इज ओनली फोकसिंग ऑन in the name of fostering cooperation and development. It is only reluctant to imply its policies and Chinese institutions in those regions. It is only that. So Chinese influence in the region is only limited to create a sort of dominance over the region. And but as far as Indian thing is concerned, Indian perspective is concerned, हमारा स्टैंड, हमारी डिप्लोमेसी का स्टैंड is to promote mutual and mutual relations, mutual prosperity, and so that both the regions, both Africa and India, work towards common goals, attainment of attainment of security from possible mutual dangers, etc. So fundamentally, both of our aims are really different, and I think this is something not at all to be compared for.
Okay, Saloni. There is one more question. और एक question हम last वाला ले लेते हैं यहाँ से. Here the question is from दिव्यलोक कौशिक. So मैं दिव्यलोक को invite करना चाहता हूँ कि वो आए और अपना जो question है वो यहाँ पे रखे.
Am I audible?
Yes, Divyalok, you are audible.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It was a really great presentation. And my question is ki, when we are talking about China, its expansionist approach is not hidden from anyone. Trump is looking more aggressive toward China in his second regime. If China attacks Taiwan, then America's commitment is to protect Taiwan, and what should be India's stance in such a situation? After all, India has signed CONCASA, LEMO, and BECA with America, and being a part of Quad Group as well as BRICS. In this scenario, India will have to face intense international pressure. What should be India's stance to counterbalance it?
I think it will not be a very difficult situation for India to decide because uh, for India, China is always the rival like Pakistan, though better, but still. Uh, so because अभी ये ताइवान का इशू है हम अपने एशिया रीजन में ही देख ले वी हैव डोकलाम इशू वी हैव अभी मैंने कल वान वैली डिस्कस किया था सो दे आर आल्सो लाइक ताइवान वो भी बहुत ही ज्यादा डिप्लोमेटिकली डिस्टर्ब रीजन्स हैं तो जब हम व्हेन वी कैन fight for a Doklam region as a territory of Bhutan, then why would we not take stand for the US to protect Taiwan from unnecessary Chinese attack? So I think this argument is kind of baseless when we say ki if India is a part of BECA, COMCASA, yes it is, but it doesn't mean that India will that in the name of in that pressure that because it is a part of those US policies, it will not take stand for China if it was or it were not a good member. It's only about a fundamental perspective, our that Nehruvian thing that our foreign policy has been inculcated with. So this is the basic fundamental thing that sets us apart from all the from all the debatable consequences. That's it.
But what about India's trade relation with China?
India's trade relations with China, this is a totally different thing. It cannot be compared to the previous question. So trade relations have a different story. Like the Chinese companies like Samsung, they are doing very well in India. So I think as far as the trade relations are concerned, they are more or less on a fair pace, and it is something which is undebatable. And I don't think that there are any fluctuations in terms of trade. Our major issue only comes in terms of territorial dispute and in terms of Chinese dominance in regional and international organizations. Yeah.
ओके सलोनी, आपने बहुत ही खूबसूरती से सारे सवालों का जवाब दिया, जो भी सारे क्वेश्चंस थे। एंड देयर इज वन मोर क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम आवर साइड जो हम आपसे पूछना चाहते हैं कि जीएसटीएस के साथ जो आपका एक्सपीरियंस है वे कैसा रहा?
Thank you, Madhin. So GSTS के साथ I am joining for the second time and both the time it has always been amazing. Through this मैंने join किया तो मेरे को भी एक मौका मिला that I put more into the research and मेरे को I got a chance to dive more into the topic like this China. I will be honest, this China thing was very new for me. I took it as a topic because I felt it is interesting and it definitely gave me an opportunity to explore more about the same. So thank you GSTS team for giving me this opportunity.
Saloni, one question from my side. Because you know that we are shrinking down 27, you see. So what are your fears, like very honest feedback for us?
Honest feedback? No, sir, like I am no one to comment on it, but for me, it's always, you all are seniors, like, I have great respect and it has always given me a great, opportunity to join with GSTS and work in that.
You are very modest. What I'm looking here, that only the moderators and few of your friends and the guest of honor are there. So something is fishy. So what those things, Saloni?
Yeah, so maybe one thing which I feel is that जब हम जब मैंने बहुत सारे GSTS के टॉपिक्स देखे हैं डिस्कशन के एंड आई कैन बी बायस्ड बिकॉज क्योंकि मेरा फील्ड शायद ऐसा हो कि मेरा एरिया ऑफ इंटरेस्ट सिर्फ आईआर है या फिर पॉलिटिक्स से रिलेटेड है, तो मेरा एक जनरल बायस्ड ये कंसेप्शन होता है मेरा कि ये टॉक मतलब पॉलिटिकल इश्यूज पे ज्यादा होनी चाहिए, और बाकी के और भी बहुत डाइवर्स इश्यूज होते हैं, विच इज आई थिंक विच इज कम्प्लीटली माई पर्सपेक्टिव, एंड आई डोंट थिंक इट वुड बी राइट टू इम्पोज. इट्स जस्ट माई ओन अंडरस्टैंडिंग.
ओके सलोनी, अब हम आगे बढ़ते हुए हमारे जो आज की गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर है डॉक्टर उमा मैम, उनसे जानते हैं कि उनको जो आपका प्रेजेंटेशन है वो कैसा लगा. सो आई इनवाइट डॉक्टर उमा मैम टू कम एंड एक्सप्रेस हर व्यूज.
या थैंक यू मंथन. मुझे ओवरऑल अच्छा लगा, लेकिन मुझे थोड़ा सा जो है हाउ चाइना इज, आई मीन 1 or 2 स्लाइड्स जो है और थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन आप करते तो अच्छा रहता, जैसे कि हाउ चाइना इज काउंटर बैलेंसिंग अमेरिकन डोमिनेंस एंड ऑल्सो द यूएस इज रेसिप्रोकेटिंग बाय द ड्यूअल डिटरेंस पॉलिसी. ये और थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन करते तो अच्छा रहता. द क्वाड इकोनॉमिक डीकपलिंग आपने बताया है, स्ट्रेंथनिंग द यूएस allies in the partnership in Asia. Overall, it's I mean, the arguments that were in favor of this view, that is Chinese century. Basically, I mean, the speaker, she highlighted China's economic might, technological prowess, military buildup, and global ambitions. And one thing, again, I would like to point it out, initiatives like a Belt and Road Initiative is not mentioned by you, which actually showcases China's desire for a leading role in world affairs. And besides that, there are also some significant challenges which I would like to highlight. 3 basic challenges. They are economic slowdown. Growth is, I mean, moderating with concerns about debt. The one who asked a very good question, debt trap policy on developing countries. I mean, China's debt trap policy. I mean, the examples are Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh. I mean, and besides that, the demographic issues, an aging population and shrinking workforce. I mean, these are some of the challenges that China, again, actually is facing. On the one hand, it is that we all think that it is China's century, but these are the challenges which, again, has to be, I mean, taken up. Political constraints and geopolitical tensions, like China's assertiveness actually creates frictions with the neighbors. But basically, overall, it's a very good presentation, and very confidently you have the way you are answering the questions. It is praiseworthy. And I would like to conclude by saying that China's rise is undeniable, but whether it leads to a full Chinese century actually depends on how China handles its internal issues, navigates international relations, and adapts to the changing global landscape. So it is a complete, complex picture with both immense potential and significant hurdles to overcome. Thank you.